The Exorcist. Published in 1971 and known as one of the most frightening novels ever written. Oh, and it also has a pretty scary movie. So it focuses on Reagan, an 11-year-old daughter of an actress living in Washington, D.C., and she has to deal with demonic possession. And it is also a movie I have not seen, as well as a book I have not read. But I'm going to change that. I'm going to read The Exorcist and find out if it really is the most terrifying novel ever written. The Exorcist is an experience you will never forget. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch said that, and I'm hoping they're wrong. And I need to turn the cover over because the cover is kind of scaring me. This should be interesting. And if you want to join me in reading this, I'd love it. So go ahead and just start reading it with me. And if not, and you want me to read it for you because you might be too scared, I'm okay with that as well. I totally understand. I totally get that. Why am I even doing this? I don't even know. I don't even know. I guess, whatever. Okay, I just read the prologue, and we just out here saying the demon's name just like it ain't nothing. I guess he didn't say it out loud. It was more of a thinking it in his head. So I've read the prologue and chapter 1. Well, chapter 1 of part 1, which is called The Beginning. And the first chapter was pretty long. It was about like 40 pages. So I figured this is a good time to pause and pretty much talk about what just happened. Now, not a lot happened, but there are definitely things that we are going to remember that did happen. So the characters we met so far, we met Father Marin, who was in the prologue, Chris, the actress, Reagan, her daughter, Willie and Carl, who are her housekeepers, Sharon, who is Reagan's tutor, as well as Chris's secretary, and Burke Dennings, who is Chris's director. I believe that's it. I believe we didn't meet anybody else. I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not missing anyone. I don't think so. Anyway, I guess we'll end up finding out. So the story does start off a bit creepy. Chris does end up hearing like noises coming from Reagan's room. She hears like a knocking sound. So she goes to investigate, but she doesn't really see anything, and she thinks there's like maybe rats in the attic. She brings it up to her housekeepers later on, and I think it's Carl is like, there's nothing there. What are you talking about? There are no rats. This is a clean house. Like, what's going on? But she's really adamant about there being this sound and how they really need to make sure that they get rid of the rats. So for most of the first chapter, we're pretty much following around Chris during like one day, pretty much like a day in her life. Like she gets up, she has her breakfast, she talks to the housekeepers about there possibly being rats, and then she goes off to work, and that's where you end up meeting the director. And then she leaves there and she walks around DC for a while. She ends up, I think, being across from a church, and she sees some priests around. She did see a priest earlier. I think she was on set, and I think she like looked across the street and she saw a priest standing there, and maybe they waved or smiled at each other. Something along those lines. But later on, we do end up learning that Chris is atheist. So I'm sure that's going to come back up. I'm pretty sure that's coming back up. But yeah, during the day, she ends up going home. She talks to Sharon. Her and Reagan end up going out to dinner, I believe. And then they end up going back home. And then when they get back home, the director ends up coming over. And I guess he just drinks a lot. And he just wants someone to drink with, possibly. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned, but Chris is in DC because she's doing a movie. Like, I don't believe they live there full time. There was mention, I think she said that she thought about maybe she could settle down there. Also, Reagan's father is not in the picture. They are separated, possibly getting a divorce. I think actually they did mention that they are getting a divorce. So that's something to deal with. And Reagan's birthday is coming up. So there's that. That's good news. Also, Chris had another child before, a son named Jamie, and he passed away when he was 3. I'm sure that's going to come back up. I'm sure that's going to come back up. I just know it. I just know it. But there's one thing that does happen while Chris is spending time with Jennings. I believe this is when he comes over. And then all of a sudden she's like, you ever think about dying?
Do you guys ever think about dying?
I don't want to say all of a sudden because I almost forgot. Earlier, or that night before the day, she had a dream about dying, which was a bit weird, especially in a book called The Exorcist. It's a bit weird. So there's that. We're dealing with that as well. So great, yay. But she does ask him, like, ever think about dying? And he kind of looks at her like, why? So that's, yep, okay. But that's pretty much Chris. She is someone who pretty much a single mother right now. She does have help with her daughter, with her housekeepers, as well as her daughter's tutor. So that's great and everything like that. But she's probably also still dealing with the death of her son, as well as no longer having that relationship with her husband. So that's something she's dealing with. But she's also possibly going to be a director, which is apparently something she's been wanting to do. I will say this chapter it did feel a bit clunky. Like it felt like there was a lot happening, and I know they wanted to really give us a sense of who these people are and what's going on in their life, but it felt slow but also clunky at the same time, if that makes any sense. But let's get to the Reagan of it all, because that's what we're here for. So Reagan, she's 11, at least she's 11 at the start of this story, and she's a pretty sweet girl. At least that's what her mom thinks of her, which is great and everything like that. She's apparently good at math, but also apparently not right now. At least that's what Sharon is saying with her tutoring. So, and she also likes to paint. She paints a lot for her mom, and she's also painting her mom a bird, which I feel like I've heard about this bird before in pop culture, but again, I haven't read the book or seen the movie, so kind of learning about the bird for the first time. Or maybe I haven't heard about the bird. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. I'm not sure. But there is definitely a moment later on where I was reading and I was just thinking, no. Chris was setting down the bird on a game table a few feet away when she noticed the Ouija board there. No. Why do you have a Ouija board? Why? Why do you have one? Why? It's something that Chris has had for a while and something that she's used before. She said that she'd originally bought it as a possible means of exposing clues to her subconscious. Just no. And then we find out that Reagan has been playing with it. Also, a nickname for Reagan that Chris used is Rags. So if I end up calling Reagan Rags at some point, that's why. But yes, Reagan has played with it, and she talks to someone named Captain Howdy, which again, I'm gonna really try not to say no, but that's just the word. No. And I guess they talk quite a bit with this Ouija board. And for Chris, she thinks that Reagan has like made up this character because Howdy is close to Howard and Reagan's father's name is Howard. But she ends up trying to talk to Captain Howdy while her mom is there and he's not answering through the Ouija board. She does get mad at him, but I mean, just please stop. Please stop. And then there's another moment where Reagan thinks that her mom is going to end up marrying Burke Dennings, her director, and she asks her about it. And her mom's like, no, he's just my friend. And then Reagan's like, well, it feels like she wants to say something, but she doesn't. Like obviously someone or something has put that in her head, but she doesn't say who or what did. And then Reagan starts to ask questions about why people die, just like Chris was thinking earlier and how she had asked Dennings earlier about it. And then Reagan says, Mom, why does God let us get tired? And with this, because Chris is atheist, she doesn't really talk about God to her daughter. And she asks her, who mentioned this to you? And Reagan says, Sharon. I don't really believe Reagan. It's possible that Sharon talks about it, but I don't believe her. believe her. Also, one night Regan does wake up and she goes to her mom and she says, I'm hearing these noises, like these knocking noises. And that's when Chris goes back to like investigate the whole rat situation. They did end up getting traps, so there's that. But also another night, or I guess, is it morning? No, and also another night, Chris wakes up, she sees Regan in her bed, and Chris is like, why are you here? And Regan says, Mom, my bed was shaking. Which I understand. If your child comes to you and says their bed is shaking, are you going to believe them? Possibly not. But in a book like this, I feel like you should. I feel like, yes, you will believe them. You just believe them and leave and go as far away as possible. Just go, or go to the church. Head to the church. Just go there now. Just do that. But that is where I've left off so far in The Exorcist. I'm not really sure where we're gonna go from here. Maybe we'll get a perspective from the priest at some point again. Maybe we'll get more perspective from the mom. I don't know if we're going to get a perspective from Regan. I don't know, but I know that there are 4 chapters in the beginning, part 1. Part 2 is called The Edge, and that has 6 chapters. Part 3 is called The Abyss, that has 2 chapters. And part 4 is called And Let My Cry Come Unto Thee, and that has a chapter and an epilogue. I'm very curious on why they chaptered them the way that they did. It really is interesting. So I don't know where we're going to go from here, but I guess we'll end up finding out.